Shannon Keebler, and the moderator of this group. I have planned or taught every single lesson in math expressions, K through 5, K through 6, with every copyright. So heading all the way back to 2009, I know the resource extremely well, and I'm so glad that you're here and ready to learn about more ways that we can implement math expressions. Specifically, we are talking about social emotional learning and math. And I wanted to choose a few things that we can do in specifically math expressions, things that we have in math expressions components and whatnot that we can use to help support those students in their learning. So I am a huge fan of Puzzle Penguin, and he is very often skipped because he shows up in workbook pages, and generally he shows up more towards like the end of the lesson when we start running out of time. And then we just like, oh, we don't have time for puzzle, let's skip that part. Okay, so my challenge to you is to take Puzzle Penguin off the workbook page and make it a realistic reasoning activity with your whole class. So oftentimes I will actually take the Puzzle Penguin questions from your teacher's guide. So you'll know if you're new to mixed math expressions, go into any lesson. Usually he shows up 2 to 3 times in a unit at least, and you'll find him there, okay, a picture of a penguin. And I'll take that problem, and that will be the problem that I actually start the lesson with. So sometimes I reorder things in the lesson because the mistake that Puzzle Penguin is making, I think could be a really great conversation starter with the class and lead us into our lesson, right? So generally Puzzle Penguin comes about when we've already been teaching on a particular topic and we think that kids are probably ready to go independent. Then Puzzle Penguin shows up because he always does the math incorrect. And he's always making an error that is developmentally very common. It's like, it's very common for first graders to blank, right? When they're learning to add numbers. Like, so he'll make that same mistake because the idea is they can create reasonable arguments, that they can identify the error, that they know how to revise the thinking, and hopefully in turn not make the same error themselves. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is to definitely use him to launch. Well, now even your kids that are in the upper grades, sometimes they get tired of puzzled because they've been seeing puzzled since they were in kindergarten, right? But I really want you to take the opportunity to use Puzzle Penguin to build social skills. Okay, what I mean by that is when Puzzle Penguin has made an error. So when I just, present or project his particular mistake, if you're a Math Genius Squad member, I always put Puzzle Penguin problems on a slide because I want it to be an engaging activity. I don't want it to be something they just do in a workbook, right? So I'll always put it on a slide for us. So it's on the slide, I present it. I want to take advantage of the idea that there are people, including us, who make errors. And it's not just about, like he forgot to put the decimal in the right place, or, oh, puzzle, like he forgot, right? Because that's what starts happening in the upper grades is they almost start like mocking him because they're like, I roll, like here's puzzle again. Yes, we know he's wrong. Well, knowing he's wrong is fine, but knowing how he made the error is really important. But the next piece is the most important for our social emotional learning. And that is, what do we do about it when he makes a mistake? Okay, how do we handle him and how do we handle the work when we see that there's an error? So I'll hear kids say things like, oh my gosh, he's such an idiot, or he's so stupid, why didn't he do that? Okay, and I'm thinking cannot tolerate any of that conversation in my classroom because there's a Puzzle Penguin sitting in your room right now. There's someone who has made that same mistake or makes mistakes often, and they don't even realize they've made the mistake. And they are so afraid of sharing their mistakes because if that's how we treat Puzzle Penguin, when he makes a mistake, how do we treat the real people in the room? So we might say we have a growth mindset. We think that mistakes happen and everyone makes them and we should grow from them. Like we all have these like fun posters in our room. But what I actually see playing out in the classroom is opposite of that. Right? Because if we don't use opportunities like Puzzle Penguin to teach that, wait a minute, so you think you know what Puzzle did incorrect. So identifying, being able to see the error is important. It's kind of like in writing. If they can't read a sentence and know which word is misspelled, we've got a problem. Okay. So a couple things to think about on that. One is when I would teach writing and I edit with kids or whatnot, I would never circle words that were incorrect because finding the word that was misspelled was the hardest part. Fixing the spelling error actually wasn't that hard, right? Like they could use a dictionary, they could use a word wall, they could use a friend, and they sometimes, most of the time, they even knew how to fix it, right? Finding the word that was misspelled is the hard part. So I would just put like a dot in the side margin, right? Like if there was a one misspelled word in this sentence, would be one dot at the top of the sentence. If there were two misspelled words, I'd put two dots, right? Maybe color code or whatever. That meant I found two spelling errors. Can you go find them? Okay, that's honoring the fact that they're there, but you're the problem solver, go do it. So think about it with math. The idea of them finding a mistake with puzzled is a big deal, right? Like I see two errors that he's made. So then therefore, when kids do their work, I can say, I see one error. Can you find it? And now I have to be more specific. Like I see a directional error, meaning like one of the steps you took is incorrect. I can see a computation error. Can you find it? Like, I don't think we can just say there's a mistake. Like, I think we need to be really clear, right, about what type of mistake it might be so that they could go back and find it themselves, right? So I want them to find their mistake themselves, but that is an important part of Puzzle Penguin. Find the error yourself. Now, once we found it, what are we doing about it? So I don't want you to be like, Puzzle, he just forgot the decimal point. Like, of course. Okay. And we're like, yeah. Okay. So now go write a constructive response about how you shouldn't forget the decimal point. Yeah, there's value in that. But what if you turned it into something different and you said, I want you now to come up with 3 questions that you could ask Puzzled to get him to find his own error. Ask 2 questions. I've given you this tip before if you've been around for any amount of time, but I want to bring it back to because it is honoring not only the person who made the error, but it's also entrusting them with, we believe that you can find it. And my job is to help you, not to fix it. Right? Because so many of our kids think that when we fix the mistake, that we fixed them, right? There was something wrong and it needed to be fixed, and that was helpful. Okay, fixing it for them is not actually helpful. Getting them to find their own error or getting them to think about why something doesn't work, that's helpful because now for the next round, they're not going to repeat that activity. But if they think that someone's just going to fix it for them every time they make a mistake, why should they be thoughtful about their errors? And why should they ever discuss them? Because it's kind of shameful. Like, I don't want anyone to know, which is why I'm going to erase my board as soon as you come around. Our teachers shelter us just a little bit. We don't want anyone to talk about mistakes because it makes us feel weird and like whatever. Okay. That's not actually a healthy environment, right? So I want you to use, first one is Puzzle Penguin. I want you to use Puzzle Penguin as a way to improve the social emotional learning in your math classroom. How do we treat Puzzle Penguin? How do we respond to him when he's made a mistake, right? Because you might even say this for yourself, like you're making an error, like as you're writing on the board, and how kind are people to you when you make an error? My guess is they're not. It's like a witch hunt. Right? They're like, that's supposed to be a 3. Are you real? Right? And you're like, whoa, like a witch hunt, like back off. Okay. So how can you tell me in a way that still respects me as a learner? Because I make mistakes all the time. So that's number 1 is Puzzle Penguin. Bring him back. Don't skip him and use him as social emotional learning.